Hi there guys, it's Tony here from Caveman Props. Well, obviously we've entered a lockdown again, so what I've decided to do, because I'm not being able to get to cons and do other videos, I thought rather than the YouTube channel just being tutorials, I get some group of people on, would have a web chat, some interesting talk about props, and it would be something different for you all to watch. So please welcome to my new videos. Hi there guys, welcome to the first of my prop talks. I'm joined today by a friend of mine, which is probably explains why he's the first one on. He's a prop maker, a cosplayer, is a YouTuber just as me, and he's also been putting together his own audio series, which we'll talk about later. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Aaron Williams.
Hello.
And how are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Been busy with work and doing props and costumes and audio editing. So yeah, all fun and games.
Oh, that's good. Good. So at least as long as you're keeping busy.
Yes, no, definitely. It's
okay. So the first thing I'm going to do, we're going to try and take you right back to the beginning and sort of like try and see where everything kind of started for you. Sort of with the props and cosplay. Did you get into props like me and it led you into cosplay, or was you into cosplay and then the props kind of came in as the added extra?
So I think, as a kid, I always enjoyed making things. I always enjoyed taking things apart and seeing how they worked. And so I remember Doctor Who was kind of the way I entered it, I suppose. And so I watched Eccleston back in 2005, and I only ever watched a few of his episodes. I didn't watch the full sort of series, and I sort of fell into it with David. And I ended up, I went ahead and I found I think it was a jacket in a charity shop, which was a brown pinstripe jacket, and so I went and bought that. And I'd made a TARDIS console, which looks nothing like this. It was literally a laundry basket which I covered in some white paper. I had a paint pot and a Dyson cylinder, and that was my console. I'd put a few bits and pieces on it, like a calculator and some checkers pieces, and like sellotape them on, and that was kind of how it all started off. So obviously that was what 16 years ago now. I'm nearly 27 now, so yeah, that would have been when I was about 10. So yeah, that was kind of how it first started, really, and here we are.
So it kind of started as the childhood play, the typical one of like covering yourself in tinfoil and being the robot or Cyberman type thing.
Yeah, I used to have a friend of mine who, as much as I watched Eccleston and David and all that, I had a friend of mine who his dad was into Doctor Who, and he had some of the Rollerkins Dalek and things like that, and we used to get these crates and we used to sit outside of his house and play with those, and that was kind of another thing that I got into. But yeah, I suppose I character options, sonic screwdrivers. I went through a ton of those. I think I kept Argos and Woolworths in business buying them, because I'd take them to school with me. I'd have it in my coat. I'd end up dropping it in a puddle or breaking it, or breaking the wire, or something would go wrong. So yeah, it's kind of progressed as the years have gone on. I think.
Okay, so where would you say now in the stuff that you make and do, where would your influences lie? You've obviously mentioned Doctor Who. I'd have never have guessed you were a Doctor Who fan.
Well, as I say, I've obviously I'm a Harry Potter fan. I'm into Supernatural. I'm into Fallout. So there's a lot of different bits and pieces that I've sort of branched out into, and I wouldn't have said that was kind of some of that's a new thing. But like Harry Potter, that was something I was into before I was into Doctor Who. And I think if I remember rightly, I had a wooden like a trunk that I had with a Hogwarts logo on top of it, and that was just blue tacked on. And that I had those bits before I was into Doctor Who. So that, I suppose, that probably predates my like of Doctor Who. But I with regards to Harry Potter and other bits, other fandoms, I suppose that sort of came into the forefront a few years back, because I kind of got to the point where I was continually doing Doctor Who, but there was a lot of stuff when I joined Instagram, and started posting pictures of stuff, and I noticed there was a lot of other people who, were doing other costumes, other bits, and I think that I kind of sat and thought, you know what, actually, I can do that. I could do other bits, and there's other costumes I could do, and I ended up putting together my Sherlock costume, my Benedict Cumberbatch version. And Tom, my friend, sat there and he was like, "Oh, I don't see why you're doing that." He's like, "You're never going to wear it to a convention." It's like, doesn't matter to me. That was another costume, another set of props I could sit there and collect or make. And so yeah, I think that kind of progressed from there really. And now I have like a full collection of props from different games and TV programs and films. And I'm slowly running out of space. So yeah.
Yeah, I totally understand what you mean about the running out of space. It intends to take over a little bit, doesn't it?
It does, yes. Yeah.
Okay. So obviously you mentioned the different shows that influence you. Is there any particular one person that you would feel that influenced you, or is it just more of a genres that influenced you?
I don't know. I don't know if there's any particular person, I suppose, that's influenced me. But I don't know. I kind of, I think I love the escapism of it. And part of my costuming as a kid was because I was bullied. And so for me, cosplay was the way of escaping and sort of having it as, maybe if I'm someone else, people would accept me more. And over the years, obviously, that's sort of gone away quite a bit. It's a lot of people accept me more for who I am. Obviously, I still get a few people who are a bit like, "You're a bit weird. You do all these props and costumes," and I'm like, "Yeah, it's what I do in my spare time. It's a hobby." But yeah, it's one of those things that I suppose I obviously I replicate things, and I do a lot of working from images of actual props to try and replicate them as best as I can. And as you know, that's kind of, there's a lot of research that has to go into that, and trying to find bits and pieces, and half the time I'm relying on other people who've possibly done the research as well. So yeah, that's kind of, I suppose there are people that I've followed and done things on, places like TARDIS Builders or Instagram, who they've posted about things, and I've gone, right, okay, I can get that. I'm gonna go and make that prop now. And I've got a whole reference folder on my laptop of stuff that I want to make or have made. So yeah, and there's props that I've made that I sort of sit there and look at it and go, actually, I'm going to remake that because I'm not happy with it. And as you know, you've probably done that on occasion. So yeah, it's one of those things that it's ongoing, and I suppose there are influences from other people as well. So yeah.
With the, I'm going to go back on one. With the
Okay.
regards to where you say you've got the folder of props that you're planning to make,
Yeah.
do you find, like me, that starts to get bigger? You add more to it than what actually comes off of it.
A little bit. I think to me, there's this part of me that's like, you can never have too much reference. Because I mean, it's like, so my David Tennant coat that I'm working on presently. So I've sat there and I've got a Magnolia overcoat currently that I bought, and for me, the color of the coat seemed too dark. Pictures I took of it, it came out looking near enough black or really like dark chocolate. And you look on screen and there's a few times where it looks that color, and then there's other times where I'm sort of sitting there looking at it, and the one I've got behind me, which is the one I've been making, like I look at that and I go, no, that's the perfect color. It shouldn't be. And I've seen it in person, but the material is such a sort of strange sort of color that, you know, in different lights it looks so different. And that's the same with a lot of props. You know, there's a lot of things I look at it and I go, oh, okay, yeah, that looks like that, and then you look at another picture and you go, hang on a minute, that's completely different. It doesn't look right. So yeah, I mean, there's, you know, I've gone to the Harry Potter studio and I've taken loads of pictures in there. I went to Mina Lima a couple of months back and took a load of reference images from in there, because there's some bits where you can't necessarily find it on the internet. And, you know, that, as I say, it does progressively build and build and build. So, yeah, it's kind of a bit of a treasure trove, really.
It kind of turns into a bit of a detective game as well when you're trying to find reference, because you can find a picture of one side of a prop but not the other side, and it's desperate to try and find that one.
It's normally that, oh, I know I've got a picture of that somewhere. Where is it? Let me look through 300 photos.
With the prop building, obviously you have ones that you plan to make.
Yeah.
But do you ever do that thing of, I do it, walking around a shop and you see something and your brain goes, well, that could be, and you can see it as something else?
Yeah, all the time. Like there's a lot of stuff that I think there's sort of two times. There'll be times like that where I'm walking around a shop and I go, ooh, that's something I could use to make this. Or I will do the thing where I'm deliberately looking for something I'm making, and half the time I either find it or I don't, and that's generally with costumes. A lot of the time it's a case of I look for pieces for costumes, and it's like looking for a needle in a bloody haystack. But yeah, as I say, there's been times where, you know, certainly walking around, and I find that Halloween and Christmas and things like that are kind of the best times, because especially buying up like cheap Poundland LED lights is great. But yeah, there are bits that I thought, oh, that'll do. I'll grab that and I can make this. So yeah, no, that definitely does happen.
Brilliant. So do you have a favorite kind of way of working with materials, or do you, because I know you don't do like some of the sculpting and casting stuff.
No.
So what was your preferred?
I mean, I suppose on some of it, it is a cost aspect of it. I think like the other day I was looking at an airbrush and I'm like, am I going to buy this? Is it going to be something I use? Because, you know, there are bits that I sit there, and a lot of the times if I'm distressing or, you know, aging things, it's like I will sit there with, you know, a sponge and a paintbrush, and that's how I'll texture it. But with an airbrush, it would probably be a lot easier. But there are sort of, I suppose that there's been times where I've sort of sat there and it's like, you know what, actually I could do with having something that I could use to resin cast something or silicon mold something. But I think on the same time, it's having that equipment and having the space. Now, obviously I live in a flat on my own, and I have a cat who tends to jump around a lot and get in the way. So yeah, it's kind of, I suppose, I mean, I've got, you know, bits and pieces that I pick up occasionally. I recently bought myself a electric Dremel because I had a battery operated one, and half the time it would just die. So yeah, I mean, I've got sort of basic tools. I've got a drill press, I've got a sander, I've got a grinder and things like that. So there's not a massive limit on what I can't do, but at the same time, you know, I do find myself sort of looking at things. I mean, even say for example, when I was building my, one of these sonic screwdrivers. Now this is 3D printed and it's got a character options head, but actually it would have been better to either had a resin cast or one of those resin printed emitter heads, because that's slightly too large. So that's one of the things that, you know, it's kind of, I'm making do with what I've got, but you know.
Brilliant. So with regards to some of your cosplays, what would you say is like your favorite one that you will keep coming back to?
I mean, David is obviously the costume I started off with, and that has gone through tons of iterations of things I had. You know, as I say earlier on, I think the first jacket I had was a brown pinstripe jacket. It was sort of knee length. It was actually a woman's coat, and I had that for years. And then I think I changed over onto like another suit that I found, and then I bought one from Sainsbury's. And then I bought one from a cosplay company in China. And then I bought another one from somewhere else. And then I bought another one, and that one on there is a Baron boutique suit. And I've had countless amounts of overcoats. Again, I had a woman's overcoat originally, and that changed. But there are some costumes where, like, I mean, I do the thing of, like, when people have ID bits, I will keep reference images, and I'll try and find bits on eBay or in charity shops, and I'll try and get them as accurate as I can. But certainly with my overcoat, like, that was kind of one, I wasn't too happy with the Magnolia one, but also I'd been watching a YouTuber called Rachel Maxey, and she does a lot of her own costumes. She sits there and sews them herself, and I sort of sat there and thought, you know what? No, I'm gonna try and push myself and do it. You know, because I've done trousers, I've done waistcoats, but coats have always been the bane of my life, and that's mainly because of the sleeves. Because I mean, even on this coat, it took 5 hours to sit and position the sleeves right, and I then had to go back and redo them because I wasn't happy. So yeah, there are definitely costumes where I will sit there and I'll be like, no, actually that's done, I'm happy with it. But then there will be some bits that I'll go, no, I'm going to go back and I'm going to redo it and get it better. So I suppose it's an ongoing process. Yeah.
So with the regards to, I know there's a lot of people that go between a very on to the side of it has to be screen accurate. Where do you feel on that? Because some people aren't that necessarily happy with screen accurate.
Yeah.
Or...
I mean, I did a video on it ages ago, and I've always sort of said, cosplay is about having fun. And obviously with this year, it's, I've mainly been focusing on props and costumes because there's been no cons to go to. And I've still been working, so I've only had limited periods of time where I've been able to do stuff. But I was furloughed for 3 weeks initially, and so there was like 3 weeks where I was sitting there twiddling my thumbs, going, right, actually let's make some costumes or props or. But with regards to screen accuracy, like I have screen accurate costume pieces. I've gone and spent money when I've had the opportunity to. But I'm not one of these people that sits there and goes, oh, everything's got to be screen accurate. And I've got into arguments with people about that. There was one group of people who they sat there and were telling people that their costumes were rubbish if it wasn't screen accurate. And I openly had a go at the guys. I was like, you can't do that, because that's not what cosplay is about. That's not the ethic. It's not what it's been intended to be. I dress up. I have a laugh. I have fun. And I occasionally make stupid videos with Tom. Although I haven't done that for quite a while. But yeah, it's one of those things that there's a lot of costumes. And I'm sort of looking over on my rail at the minute, and there's a lot of them over there that aren't fully accurate. But if you put that costume on, people know who you are. And I mean, years ago, I went to my first convention back in 2009, and I had my David Tennant suit on, which was, as I say, it was a woman's overcoat. It was a Sainsbury's pinstripe suit and a pair of cheap Converse. And my friend Ed, who I met there, he thought that I had like a £700 suit on. It cost me 70 quid. And he thought it was, a properly expensive thing. It wasn't. It wasn't accurate. It wasn't expensive. It was just run of the mill stuff that I've picked up and was like, there we go. So yeah, it's, No,
it is. I know there's a lot of people that spend an absolute fortune sometimes on their costume, but sometimes you can just get something really quite cheaply from a charity shop that is good for purpose. And you're right. It is for fun. Especially with youngsters, as long as you know who they're supposed to be.
No, exactly.
It's all about having fun, belittling people for that. I don't go in for that.
Exactly. No, exactly.
Okay. Okay. So I want to talk to you quickly about your audio series. Obviously, I don't want to give too much away, but just sort of tell us a bit about that. How did that sort of come about, that you were producing your own audio series?
So it's something I've done before, and for years, especially with Tom, it was kind of like we started doing these little sketch videos, and I kind of had in the back of my head, like, you know, that I wanted to do a fan series of some sort. And I did go ahead and start filming, you know, a little fan series. And my TARDIS console was sat in Tom's shed in his back garden. I still had my life-size TARDIS at the time, and you know, we were like, oh yeah, we'll take the TARDIS here. We'll go and do proper filming, and we did that, and it wasn't that great. It was, you know, you sort of looked at it, and I sort of sat there and I was like, oh my god, what have we done? Like, this is just, it's not great. And it then kind of became a bit of a logistical thing where I was like, you know what, you know, trying to find time to do this and go places and have the money and stuff to be able to do this. It wasn't viable. And you know, I'd sort of sat there and written like episodes and scripts and things like that, and I thought, you know what, I'll do it as a audio thing. You know, that's easy. I can sit there and just record it, and I can get other people to record lines and just sit there and edit it together. And so I did do a first series. I did 6 episodes, and they are up on my YouTube. And again, they are a little bit naff. Like I mean, that was 3-4 years ago I did that. And I kind of sat there and I was like, oh god, you know, you do that thing if you look back and you think, what the hell was I doing? And you know, there's one episode which I'm kind of like, yeah, okay, that's all right. You know, it was an episode called Victorian Silver, and it was about Cybermen, and it didn't sound too bad. But I sort of sat there and I was still sort of tinkering away on my laptop and writing scripts. And I was like, you know what, actually, you know, a lot of people who were watching my videos are saying, yeah, I'm doing an audio series and it'll come along. And it just sat there. I didn't do anything with it. It just, you know, and so I thought, you know what, I've got time, you know, let's do it, you know. So, I started writing a couple more scripts, and I sort of sat there looking at it more and working out how I could adapt things and extend scripts, because some of them were quite short. You know, you'd sort of read it through and like, actually, no, this needs a bit more bulk and a bit more, you know, there to it. And then I sort of put a shout out to people on Instagram, and I roped in Tom and a few other friends to give me a hand with doing lines, and it's slowly coming together. It's, you know, it's nowhere near finished. I've been doing a lot of Photoshop work on like the Big Finish style audio covers, but yeah, it's still a work in progress, and hopefully, you know, maybe sometime during the middle of this year, end of this year, maybe that'll be when they start to sort of come out. But yeah, it's, you know, it's one of those things where I'm like, you know what, I hope this is going to actually be a bit better than what the original set was. So yeah.
So it's always the strive to be better than you was before.
Yeah, I think we all kind of do that a little bit, and you know, certainly with props, I do it occasionally. I will sit there and look at it and go, nope, I'm going to remake that because I'm not happy with it at all. And that's you know, that's another part of the reason why I don't do commission work, is because, you know, a lot of people go, oh, you know, would you make this? And I'm like, well, no, because if I'm not happy with it, you know, it needs to be that, you know, you're going to be happy with it, and if I'm not happy with it, then I doubt you will be. So, you know, that's kind of, yeah.
But do you ever actually think you're 100% happy with a piece you've ever made?
I don't. That's a good question, actually. I'll just say I'm sort of looking at stuff now. I mean, I think the console certainly. I mean, that's been something I've sat there and gone back and remade, and partly that's because I didn't use the best materials, or, you know, I've sort of looked at things and gone, actually, that could be better. But I mean, certainly the way the console looks now, I'm a lot happier with it than what it was 3-4 years ago. I don't know if there's anything I'd say, yeah, that's finished, I don't need to touch it. I don't know. It's a good question.
There we go. I've stumped you on one.
You have, yeah.
So you're obviously hoping to get the audio series out towards the end of this year.
Hopefully, yeah.
So have you written every single episode?
So I did the thing the other day. So I'd done 7 episodes. Was sitting there, and I sort of said to Tom, I said, "There's an episode. I want to do something with Daleks." Because I'd done a Dalek episode in the last series, and it was okay. And so I sort of sat there one evening, and I'm like, right, screw it, I'm going to write it. Because he sort of joked about with me and was like, oh, why haven't you let me write one? And I'm like, well, go on then, write an episode. And he didn't bother. So I was like, right. So I sort of sat there and wrote one down. And I sent it to my friends David and James and that. And about half an hour to an hour later, I got a message back going, right, I've had a tinker with your script. Here we go. I'm like, oh, okay. Actually, no, this is slightly better. So yeah, there's now 8 episodes. But at the same time, there are a couple where I'm sort of sitting there looking, going, not too sure if that's strong enough. So there's still a little bit of work there, and I've sort of been adding in extra lines, and I've said to Laura, who plays the companion in it, I've sort of gone, I've edited the script a little bit. Can you record these extra few lines for us? But the way I work it is I will sit there and record myself reading the script and then splice in the audio that way, because it makes it a little bit easier and gives me an idea of how long each episode is going to be. So it helps out a lot doing it that way.
So you're not really one of these people who wants to do everything. You're quite happy to let somebody else have their input and say on it.
I mean, there's been times where I've sort of sat there and, I've come up with an idea for a script, and you can kind of do that thing where you go running with it, and you sort of get there. But then there's also bits where I've kind of had an idea, and I've sort of sat there and pondered on it for ages. Gone, how am I going to do this? And so there's 2 scripts in the audio series this time, which I haven't written. There was one which James Sutton wrote, so Scarecrow Props, and then my friend Emelina, she wrote another one. And so obviously David is now sitting there editing this 3rd script. But he like, when I sent it to him, he was like, you've written a Dalek script, it ends in 8 pages. He's like, I can't see it. He's like, it needs more depth, it needs more in it. So, but then I looked at it and I'm like, well, most of my scripts are 8 pages long. So I don't know, maybe I'm missing a point, but they work out about 20 minutes long, so they're not sort of something that people are going to have to sit there and be like, oh god, this is lengthy and taking ages. It's
Brilliant. So obviously what I'll do is I'll put a link in the description to Aaron's site, so you can get them when they come out later in the year. The last thing obviously I want to speak to you about, we're going to go completely off topic, is obviously about the dreaded lockdown. We have no conventions at the moment. We haven't for almost a year now. How are you finding the lockdown? No conventions, seeing friends and family?
Yeah, so it's been weird. I mean, we're coming up to nearly a year now that this has been going on, and I think that the situation hasn't been handled in the best way possible. I think there's been a lot of errors that have been made, but I won't go into that because we'd be here quite a while. But no, I mean, lockdown happened just before my birthday last year. And as I say, I spent 3 weeks off furloughed while the business set up and made sure that we were COVID secure. And yeah, I mean, my birthday was weird. I sort of woke up in the morning, sat there and was like, okay, and it got to sort of about 4:30 in the afternoon, and I got a text message going, oh, come to your front door. And I'm like, what? I was like, you don't even know where I live. And literally I opened the door, and there was 4 of my friends stood socially distanced outside with presents and cake. So they were like, we don't want your day to be rubbish. But no, I mean, I've mainly been, as I say, I've mainly been working. It's quite funny because I had one of my managers who was like, oh, you've got this holiday coming up. I'm like, yeah, that was for Collectomania. They've like, yeah, you've got this off. That was like Comic Con, that's not happening. And then it was like, every year me and Tom normally do the Christmas fair here in Bury. And last year, well, not last year, the year before that, we did it, and it didn't feel as enjoyable as it had in previous years. And I kind of said to Tom, I was like, maybe we should take a year off. You know, but let it set, let dust settle a bit, and go back to it. And then COVID hit, and so it didn't happen at all last year. But even then, that felt quite weird not doing that. And you know, there's been sort of times where I've sort of sat there and spoken to friends on Facebook or WhatsApp, or you know, and I've sort of gone, oh, you know, it would have been doing this, or you know, we could have been meeting up and doing that, and you know, there's a lot of different things that just it's been so strange not seeing people that I would normally see, or you know, go and do things that I would normally do. You know, like we'd be going and doing stage doors, or going to conventions and meeting celebs and friends, and you know, so that's kind of why I've been sort of spending my time doing the props and costumes, because it's something I still enjoy. And it's something that's just sort of filled the time a little bit. So yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to going back to conventions. I do have a bit of skepticism on how they're going to run in the future. You know, I know that I think it was Phantom Films that were still running slightly, and they sort of had it socially distanced. But obviously, that's quite a small convention anyway, so it's something they can control. But obviously, things like MCM, Comic Con, Collectomania, obviously they have thousands of people that go there, and I don't know how they're going to regulate it. Obviously, you know, it's difficult because you know, when you're trying to keep that many people safe, and obviously I know that the vaccines now come out, and people have started to get that, but obviously that's going to be a long time coming. That's something over the next year that's going to happen. And yeah, it's kind of it's interesting to sort of see whether they're going to be able to get it up and running as normal in the future. But I suppose, you know, we'll kind of have to keep a tab on what's going on with it. But yeah.
Yeah, so you're under the same thinking as me. It's going to be at least another year before we can get back to the cons
I
properly.
think so. It's kind of, you know, I mean, MCM did the thing where they were talking about October this year, and I'm just sort of sat there thinking it's not going to happen. Like, you're probably going to have people who book tickets, and then they're probably going to be like, no, we're going to cancel it, and it's not going to happen, and then they're going to have a load of people who are unhappy about it, and you know, it's difficult. You know, it's, you know, you can't really prepare for it. You know, and you know, it's like you know, this year we were sort of sitting there going, well, maybe we will be back to the Christmas fair, but there's no guarantee of that. You know, and it's, you know, you can't sort of say, oh yeah, this is what's going to happen, because you know, look at 2 months ago, it seemed like the R rate was going down, the numbers were dropping, and then they announced that they were, you know, lifting lockdown slightly, and it spiked and went back, and we went into a second lockdown. So you know, there's no guarantee of what will happen. So yeah, I'm kind of just, I'm like, yeah, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, we are where we are. So yeah.
Yeah, I've been thinking exactly the same. You see some of them, oh, you know, we've postponed it to
Yeah.
October and selling tickets, and I'm just like, say it doesn't happen. I've been like holding off and holding off. I'm just like, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna go for it. But to me, some of the things, it's the silly little things. You get the reminder that you would have been
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
a convention, and I have to admit, I got the reminder that obviously, or I think it was Tom had posted they weren't going to be doing the Christmas fair,
Yeah.
and of course, obvious he wasn't going to be doing the Christmas fair, and I just went, oh no.
Yeah.
Christmas, because it is obviously, it's a charity thing. It raises good
Yeah.
money for charity, and
Yeah.
I was just like, oh my god, it's not. It was that silly little thing that
Yeah.
one little thing wasn't going on, and it kind of upset me a little bit.
Yeah, it just has been really sort of, yeah, like, and it's kind of one of those things, especially with the fair, because obviously that's literally me and Tom. We're the ones that arrange it. We, you know, we spend the year making props and costumes and getting it together, and not, like I sort of said to him, you know, it was kind of nice not to have the headache of it last year. Because normally I'm ripping my hair out and shouting and swearing, and we're still making things like 3 hours before the thing opens. So it was kind of nice not to have that. But yeah, it was strange, because you know, it was. I mean, we sort of joked, and Tom was like, "We should just go down there anyway." He's like, "Take a Dalek." He's like, "You're in a mask." I'm like, well, I don't think the council would see it like that. But yeah, it is one of those things where I just, you know, it's been strange not doing it. And you know, I've kind of been I mean, me and Tom, when lockdown was relaxed quite a bit, we went down to London and we did some photos. So I went and done like pictures with me and my Sherlock stuff, and we went to the car park where they used for Legopolis. And so we did a little bit of that to sort of fill the time, because it was like, well, it means that we're still doing something rather than just sitting at home twiddling our thumbs doing nothing. So yeah, I mean, obviously at the minute we're still in full lockdown. And yeah, it's kind of, at the minute, it's kind of wake up, go to work, come back, do a bit of editing or sewing or making something, go to bed, get up, go to work. So it's kind of a bit repetitive at the minute, but yeah, hopefully at some point in the future that will change. But obviously the timeline on that we're not sure of.
No, we just have to kind of fill our time as best we can.
Yeah.
And just get through.
Yeah.
Hopefully towards the end of this year.
Hopefully, yeah.
Cool. Well, I think that's all we've got time for at the moment.
Yep.
Aaron, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to speak to me. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'll put a link to your YouTube channel in the description for this.
Yeah.
So guys, go and check out some of the work that Aaron does. But thanks for watching this video. Please like, please subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.